Thanks for tuning in to the Golden State Media Concepts Fantasy Football Podcast, the podcast that covers everything fantasy football from standard scoring leagues to daily fantasy leagues. We got you covered. I'm your host, Tate, and today I got my good buddy with me, Owen Sullivan. How you doing there, Owen?
I'm doing well, Tate. How about yourself?
I'm doing good, other than, it's been really warm in California up here.
Yeah, it is a hot summer so far.
That's an understatement, and we've been having little problems in the studio lately with the AC, so it's a little warm in here, everyone.
Good for you.
All right, so last week we were covering quarterbacks, and we got through the top 10, and today we're going to be covering 11 through 20. So we're going to kind of recap who our top quarterbacks were. We're going to go through 1 through 10 and let you know what who we picked for the top 10, and then we're going to continue on from 11 through 20 when we come right back. Please hold, and we'll be right with you.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Okay, we're back, and this is Tate with Owen Sullivan today, and we're going to be covering our quarterbacks. Last week we covered our from number 1 to number 10, and our number 1 quarterback was Aaron Rodgers, and we both kind of agreed on Aaron Rodgers. And then, do you want to go through who are the rest of the
list? The first 4, as we talked about last week, are basically so close. You can interchange any one of them. But the second one is Cam Newton. Third one is Russell Wilson. Fourth, Carson Palmer. Fifth, Tom Brady. Brady could also be up there, mixed up with those. Sixth, Andrew Luck. But then followed by Ben Roethlisberger. Number 8, Eli Manning. Number 9, Drew Brees. And number 10 is Tony Romo.
Now, with it being a week already has passed since we started this, do you have any second thoughts on our top 10?
No, I think, again, I think we, so like we said last week, we were talking about the first 5 are so light years ahead of everybody else that if you had those picks in your draft, you have a chance for one of those 5. I would pick those in the first round. Anything after that, the next 5 could go in the third, fourth round, whatever you are comfortable picking up a quarterback.
Yeah, because now here's the thing, there's a couple of different schools of thought, and this is a prime example where Owen, who's been very successful in fantasy, and no one can doubt that. When he looks at the first 5 picks or one of the top picks in the draft, he always likes to go quarterback first. Where I'm a little different, where getting the top quarterback is a priority, but I don't try to touch a quarterback until at least the 3rd or 4th round. It's just a different approach. Doesn't mean one is better than the other one. It's just a philosophy. And so but I do agree with him on the top 5. We definitely agreed on that. The only caveat is, if for some reason, now let me ask you this about your top 5. Let's say the same thing happened that happened last year, where the courts come in and lift that suspension from Tom Brady. Does that change your top 5?
I would put Brady ahead of Wilson. That would be the only thought. How about you?
I would move Tom Brady to number 1.
I can't. I wouldn't disagree with you.
Yeah, that's the only thing that I would shift my top 10 is that if Brady doesn't have the suspension, Brady proved last year with Gronk and everyone else that he's a force, and I would definitely move him ahead of Aaron Rodgers and Cam Newton for that matter. So I was just kind of curious about that with you.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. Any one of those 5, put a slip in a hat and pick it, and you'd still be okay.
Yeah, you're doing pretty darn good. If you pull off one of these fives, you're more than likely you're set to, unless you have a horrible draft, you're set to contend for the playoffs.
And the funny thing, like you're talking about Brady, it's not like he's got wide receivers like Roethlisberger does. I mean, Edelman and Amendola, they're good possession receivers, but you're not gonna go deep on them every time.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I kind of like Brady makes his wide receivers look a whole lot better than what they really are, and Belichick as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and dive in, and we've already covered our top 10, and now we're going to hit our number 11th quarterback from the San Diego Chargers, which is Phillip Rivers. Now, what's your thoughts on Phillip so far?
Rivers has always been just a steady, strong quarterback. He's, I kind of put him up there. He's below Eli Manning in ability, but he always does seem to put up numbers no matter what. Although the last few years, because of his receivers have been a little bit decimated. Gates hasn't been the player that he once was, which was basically his safety valve. He's fallen off a little bit, so I'm not as bullish about him as the others in the top 10. But I still think he is a decent quarterback and will put numbers up for you.
Now, with me, my take on Phillip Rivers is this. When Phillip Rivers is on, Phillip Rivers is one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. He puts up amazing numbers, huge stats, and he can single-handedly win a game for you. But Phillip Rivers can also lose a game for you. When he has his lows, they can be low. And that's one of the reason why I get a little nervous with him, because, he's that guy can go off for 20, 30 points, or he's that guy that can go for 10, 15 points. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. I think it's, you never know what you'll get with him. Most of the time you're going to get, 20, 25 points most of the time. But then every so often he's going to throw that stinker in there, and it's just going to kick your butt, and you're going to go, why do I have him on my team?
And you do not want that stinker when you're going down the line and it's win and you're in, or lose and you're out of the playoffs, and he comes in with one of those stinker games. It'll make you regret having him for the rest. Forever.
I don't think if you were playing Rivers that you're going to be in the championship game. I might be stretching it a bit, but that might be, I would venture to say that's probably not going to take you to the championship.
Maybe you've done really well with drafting wide receivers and quarterbacks at that point.
You had to have.
All right, so let's move on to number 12, which is, is this guy fool's gold, or is he just that guy that is just the right guy for your roster? And that's Kirk Cousins from the Washington Redskins.
Kirk Cousins is, again, one of those quarterbacks that you some days he puts up huge numbers, and other days he throws 5 interceptions. I think he doesn't. I'm not as excited about him because I'm not as excited about his receivers. I know you always liked Deshaun Jackson. For one thing, he went to Cal, but and for another team, for another thing, he seems to quit or doesn't play when he when he has a bad day. But with him, and then you got Pierre Garçon, who's decent, but he's just at the end of his career. I don't know that Cousins can make them better. What do you think?
Now, you know what? I'm going to agree with you, but before I even give my answer to that one, I want to give the audience just a little backstory on the Deshaun Jackson story. Okay, so Owen's a very solid fantasy football player, and one year he was one of the best teams in the league. He was on a roll, and Deshaun Jackson, it was like game after game, would just let him down. Then he bench him, Deshaun Jackson would go off. Then he start him, Deshaun Jackson would flat out just be a dud. After a while, by the end of the season, he was so done with Deshaun Jackson. It's been years. He still does not want Deshaun Jackson on his team.
I don't. He's a chump. I don't like him.
All right. So with that being said, my thoughts on Kirk Cousins is this. I think he's like, we have him at number 12. I think that's way too high for him. I wouldn't, I don't like him as a starter. He would be someone I would think about as a backup, but I definitely, I think there's a lot of other quarterbacks between, from 14 to, let's say, 17 or 18 that I would take ahead of him. Not sold on him. I want to see how he does this year. So right now, I'm not very bullish on him.
I would, remember we were talking about if you had one of the 4 or 5 picks, and you were concerned about and you wanted to take Brady. This guy would be probably around in the 3rd, 4th round. I think I probably wouldn't be that hesitant to pick him just for a filler for 4 games.
You know what? I agree with you. I think he would be a good filler as far as, at the beginning of the year, a lot of quarterbacks, that's when they perform the best, before there's all the film and everything. I could see him, if you have Brady, having Kirk Cousins as your backup for the first 4 games, I think you're in a good place.
I agree.
All right, let's move on to number 13. I'm gonna say it's from the Detroit Lions. It's Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford light, and the reason why he's Matthew Stafford light, because there's no Megatron, and if you don't have Megatron, what do you have in Detroit?
You got Golden Tate, Marvin Jones, and Jeremy Curley. Is that his name? Curley?
Yes.
I mean, what a fall off. It's a huge fall off. I mean, it is. Having Megatron on your team was just enormous for him. And now that he's gone, and what a great career, he probably stopped short. He could have probably played it another year or two, but for him it was the right time to go out. But not having him, I don't think Stafford is going to can possibly have a great year. Look what he did when he was out.
I agree with you. Everything falls on Golden Tate. And here's the thing: when I look at Golden Tate, I think Golden Tate will have a great year this year because of the fact there's no Calvin Johnson. But now there's no one to draw the double team where, everyone was going to double and triple team Calvin Johnson. Now the double and triple team is going to go to, Golden Tate. And, maybe they won't double team. It's going to be a tough year for Matthew Stafford. He's my guy that I say I'm avoiding at all costs this year.
If you are looking to Golden Tate to have a great year to save Matthew Stafford, good luck.
Yeah.
I don't see it. I mean, I didn't see it when he played at Notre Dame. I don't see it when he's been in the pros. I don't think in last year when Johnson was hurt, he didn't step up and really shine. So, I mean, I just don't see it. And Stafford is a good quarterback, but I don't think he's good. He's a Tom Brady-esque that can take some of the players like this, like Golden Tate, and make them that much better.
I agree with you. He's been in the league a long enough time that he's showed flashes of potential greatness, but that was with Calvin Johnson and a lighter schedule. I just don't see a lot of big things from him this year.
I'm with you.
All right, let's move on to number 14 here, and that is the Cincinnati Bengals' Andy Dalton. Now, Andy had a phenomenal year the first half of the year, but couldn't hold together. He ended up getting injured and was out for the year. What's your thoughts on what Andy Dalton's going to be like this year?
Man, that's he was good the first half, and he had a couple. Last year he was good, but I don't know what happened to him. He did get hurt, and then I'd almost go with A.J. McCarron ahead of him.
Oh, no way. See, now this is where...
Well, have you ever seen McCarron's wife? Oh, my God.
That does not make you... Just because Tom Brady is that
I
good,
give him
that's
style
not because
points.
of the wife. All right. So now it's kind of funny because I respect your view on that one. That's fascinating because I look at Andy Dalton and I say Andy Dalton's the steal of this draft. I mean, that's a guy that you could literally wait to the end of your draft, pick him up, and you have gold there. Last year, before he went out, he was the #1 quarterback in the NFL when he went out.
I have to say too that he does have that his tight end Eifert is an up and coming star.
I agree with you big time.
Yeah, he really started to shine last year, and if he continues to progress and continues to get better, that could be a big help to Dalton because the other his other wideouts aren't they're just not that strong.
I agree with you. Now, when we come back, we're going to start diving into that 15 through 20 range. So stay tuned, and we'll be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Okay, we're back, and we're covering the top quarterbacks in the NFL draft. We just covered 1 through 14, or we covered 1 through 10 last week. But I'm gonna kind of recap who we have, and then we'll pick up at number 15.
Hey, let me say something, Tate. One thing I was saying about Dalton that that he had some receiver issues in the sense that they weren't as strong. And it really isn't the case because he's got AJ Green, and I mean
AJ Green's a force.
I mean that guy's he's a monster. So I mean that I didn't mean it that that Cincinnati's receivers were weak, but he's just got Green by far is above and beyond all the rest of them, and I don't think anybody else is in anywhere near that that category.
He has some decent receivers in the past. In previous years, the whole thing about Andy Dalton and the Bengals have been down the stretch. How do they hold up down the stretch? And that's why they keep getting knocked out of the playoffs in the first round. Is just because they start out like gangbusters, and then the second half of the year it's just fizzle. Again,
I just say watch that tight end, Eifert. I think
And I agree. He's a stud this year.
He could be up there with Gronk, numbers.
I agree. Okay, so we're gonna recap who we've covered so far, and then we're gonna touch on the number 15. So we had Aaron Rodgers at number 1, Cam Newton at number 2, Russell Wilson, Carson Palmer, Tom Brady, Andrew Luck, Ben Roethlisberger, Eli Manning, Drew Brees, Tony Romo, Phillip Rivers, Kirk Cousins, Matthew Stafford, and then we just finished up with Andy Dalton. And now we're going to our number 15 guy from the Jacksonville Jaguars, Blake Bortles. Now, let's talk before we get to Bortles. I will tell you this. In my opinion, this is not your old school Jacksonville Jaguars where you're expecting 1 or 2 wins this year. I think Jacksonville's going to surprise a lot of people, and Bortles is going to be a big part of that. What's your take?
I hate to disagree, but I'm going to disagree. Bortles is okay, and when I say okay, it's not. I'm not putting him down. He obviously to get at the level he's at, you got to be pretty special. But I just don't see him as a point machine. Again, you look at his wide receivers. He's got Allen Robertson, Allen Hurns, Marquise Lee. Nobody none of those guys make any defensive backs stay awake at night. I mean,
agreed. I agree with you.
You know, so unless he again makes them better, which I don't know that he will, because I don't know that he has the talent to do that. I don't see them being anything other than a quarterback for a bye week.
Now, you know, and no, I'm not telling you, you know, I wouldn't go out and say he's going to be my man and I'm going to draft him right out of the gate. But he's that guy where if you're trying to catch, you know, if you're trying to catch lightning in a bottle, or you're looking for, you know, a quarterback, if you're kind of concerned about your quarterback or he goes down, Blake Bortles may be a guy that you want to go with. And here's the reason why I'm a little more bullish on Blake Bortles as a second-tier quarterback, that he's going to make a big jump this year. You know, because anyone down in that 15-plus range, we're not talking about them being all world. But when you look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, their defense is going to be so much better this year, where they're going to get a lot more 3-and-outs, a lot more stops, where he's going to get more opportunities. Do you not agree with that?
That theory, we talked about that in the you know, when we were talking about Russell Wilson and Carson Palmer, you know, where their defense is going to give the quarterback a better, you know, more time on the field, therefore more chances to make plays and more points. I don't disagree with that. I just don't know that he is the, you know, can capitalize on that. I mean, I could go either way. I think I would probably go the other way. You know, but the other thing that he does have, he's got Julius Thomas as a tight end, and if Thomas can, you know, have the year that he had in Denver, you know, the 2 years he was in Denver, that could help him. That could add, you know, add some strength and add some numbers to him as a quarterback.
I agree with you. You know, Thomas last year, he came off an injury, and it took him a little while to get going. But by the time it got toward the end of the year, he actually made some pretty decent strides. You can tell that the injury was behind him, and I think this year is where I could see him making a huge rebound. And that's another reason why I was kind of looking at him as Bortles as one of those guys that, you know, I'm not telling you to go out and you know, but if you were kind of late in the round and you were looking for a second quarterback, I'd be pretty comfortable with him.
Yeah.
And I respect you. I respect you saying, like, you know what, I'm staying the heck away.
Well, you know, if I had to take someone from Jacksonville, I think I'd go for the Jackson 5. I mean, Blake, you know, you're a good guy, Blake, and I like you as a person, but I'll pass on you.
I'm telling you this right now, Tito is not going across the middle.
Just look over your shoulder, baby. I'll be there.
All right, let's move on to number 16, which is Tyrod Taylor from the Buffalo Bills. Now, Buffalo last year was kind of a disappointing team. Everyone thought they had everything going. I think a lot of people were kind of surprised about Tyrod Taylor being the starter, but everyone thought Buffalo had everything, and they just kind of fizzled out.
He is to me, he's a poor man's Russell Wilson. You know,
okay, I can see that.
He's a smart kid. He reads defenses well. He can run the ball, but he does not have, in my opinion, the backup in the sense of tight end wideout. Except Sammy Watkins is his go-to target, and that guy is amazing.
Now, here's my problem with Sammy Watkins. If Sammy Watkins is healthy, you have a rock star.
Excellent point.
But is he healthy?
Well, he wasn't last year for most of the year.
Right.
His rookie year, though, he was on the field most of the game.
Without a doubt. If he's on the field, he's a stud.
Right.
And he will really help that. He will help the Buffalo Bills and Tyrod Taylor out. I just don't know how much I trust him.
Is anybody afraid of Leonard Hankerson?
I'm not.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could cover him.
I don't know about that. Too many cheeseburgers, my man. Too many cheeseburgers. Okay, let's move on to number 17. And this is Derek Carr from the Oakland Raiders. I kind of see this is the year that Derek Carr makes a huge leap forward. He's a guy that I think for a lot of people who are looking for quarterbacks, if your quarterback goes down beginning of the year, go after this guy, because I could see him having a much improved year And I can also see the Raiders having a much improved year, which is it's kind of scary to say that, but I can definitely see the Raiders making a lot more headway this year.
I think Derek Carr, honestly, I think 17 is way too low for him.
I agree with you.
I should think he should be closer to 14 or 15 in our list. But there's a bunch of them that are kind of bunched up in that area. But I mean, I would put him up there with Dalton and Bortles. Look at his wide receivers with Cooper, and then he's got his running backs are strong. I mean, he has got talent. He is a big time NFL quarterback. Big, strong kid. I like him. And Oakland is getting better and better and better.
Absolutely. Now let me ask you this: if you were looking at this list and you switch and it said number 12 was Carr and number 17 was Kirk Cousins, would you really be upset about that?
No.
I wouldn't either.
No.
I would not be it whatsoever.
And Carr's, I was saying his running back, Murray, is, great coming out of the backfield as a wide receiver also. And not, some of those other quarterbacks don't have that back that's got the ability to catch the ball and then, juke and take it up the field. I just think Carr is a good young quarterback, and I think he's going to get better and better. The person he reminds me a little bit about is Eli Manning, except that Eli without having Coughlin as a coach. Coach,
I could see that.
His coach is going to open it up a little bit more, and you could see him getting more and more comfortable with Carr throwing the ball.
Now, let's move on from here, and I'm very curious about this next guy. I just kind of want to hear what you think of this next guy. That's Jameis Winston of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What do you think? What do you expect to see this year? That's a tough one, right?
It is a tough one. He's got so much talent. He is so talented.
In spades.
He is unbelievable. But I just don't know that he has the mental capacity to be, that quarterback like Cam Newton or like Russell Wilson or something like that. He's got the skill set that's similar to those players, but I just don't think that he can. He's got the mental toughness to be in that arena.
Now, see, I mean, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off,
right.
but I don't know if it's that. I think he has all the skills to be a great quarterback. I just don't trust the organization around him.
And that also is part of it too. Yes, I'm not sure that it's been a coaching a little bit of a carousel for him. They've gone through 3 or 4 of them, and I just don't see him progressing. This would be his 3rd year. I don't see him progressing from years 1 to 2, and then coming on to 3.
Meaning this would be his 2nd year.
3rd, isn't it? No, second.
Second year. I was like, wait a minute, did I miss a year in here somewhere?
Yeah. Where were you?
I'm like,
you lost again.
I missed the season.
You lost again.
It's one of those things where when I look at him, I say, do you trust Tampa Bay to make all the right decisions to put him in a winning situation? I lack trust of Tampa Bay more than I lack trust of Jameis Winston.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. The organization, I don't think it's always been kind of a hodgepodge of stuff. Except the one time they won it. But I'm with you. You're going to have to convince me that he's got the ability, and I don't. As a 2nd-year player, I don't feel it.
Okay, let's move on here. And here's a guy. Last year, everyone was very bullish on this guy. Everyone thought this was the guy that was going to make that giant leap forward. And some people even thought he was going to make the giant leap forward to elite. And that was Ryan Tannehill of the Miami Dolphins. I wasn't very bullish on him last year, and it proved to be right. Some people even had them as one of the 5 to 7 best quarterbacks in the league. What do you expect out of Ryan Tannehill this year?
I don't think he's top 10. Like I said, we got him at 19, which is probably
about perfect, right?
Yeah, he could go up a little bit, maybe 2 spots, but not much more. He just has to. He would have to prove to me that he's a consistent player, because he hasn't been. Like, one week he'll throw 3 TDs, another week he'll throw 1 and 5, 3 interceptions. So it's just not. I don't have a lot of confidence in him that week in and week out he's going to be consistent.
Who do you trust more, Ryan Tannehill or Jay Cutler?
Man, hey, Tannehill.
Do you? I'm trusting Cutler. I don't know why, but I trust Cutler more.
I don't know about that one.
Or am I stretching a little bit here?
Well, Cutler. I mean, there's another guy's got just a ton of talent, but he can't can't put it together.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Okay, let's move on to our number 20 quarterback, which is Joe Flacco of the Baltimore Ravens.
Flacco is, he's almost like a Trent Dilfer type guy. He's system quarterback. He does well. He's consistent. He doesn't make huge mistakes, but he's not going to give you 50 points every week. He's just consistent. He'll throw probably two touchdowns, 280 yards. Maybe every other week he'll throw a pick. But he'll mix the ball around. He doesn't have Smith this year because he's gone, but he's just a good, steady, reliable guy. If you want a steady Eddie, that's your man. What do you think?
I look at Joe Flacco and I say, stay away. Baltimore, I don't believe in them this year. I don't think they're not a playoff team. I don't look at them as a playoff team. I don't look at them as an elite defense where, he's going to get the ball a lot. Everything that I see with Baltimore, I feel like it's on the way down, not on the way up. And if you have a team that's on their way down, so is the quarterback. I'm avoiding Joe Flacco this year at all costs. He won't sniff my roster.
I don't. I can't argue that. Ever since he came into the league, I've always been so with him. I've had him on a couple teams in the past, and never really did anything to light my fire. I just thought he did fine. He didn't. Most of the time he was fine, but he just didn't. Again, he's not going to take your team to a championship.
Matter of fact, I'm going to say this: if you're at the point where you're thinking about making Joe Flacco your quarterback, I have a better option. I would say no quarterback. I would just go week to week. If Joe Flacco's my last resort, who I'm thinking about starting at my quarterback, then I would play the matchups and look at the waiver wire each week and put a different quarterback in each week than Flacco.
That possible. I've done that. I've done that.
I know you have. Yes, you have. Yes.
When you get when your main quarterback, your big dog gets hurt, and the scrap heap is looking pretty bad. And you just go back and pick somebody else every week. See what kind of matchup it is.
Okay. All right. When we come back, this concludes our top 20 quarterbacks. When we come back, we're going to recap our top 20 list, and then we're going to each pick our lightning in the bottle players that's left out of the quarterbacks here. So hang in there, and we'll be right back.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Okay, we're back, and we just finished up our top 20 fantasy football quarterbacks for the 2016-17 year. We're going to kind of recap that, and then the next thing we're going to do is going to talk about our are guys that we think are lightning in the bottle. Those are the quarterbacks that, you're not going to draft. You're not going to make a move on, but they could be that guy that you steal from off that waiver wire that could actually turn your fantasy football season around. But before we go that, we're going to recap our top 20 quarterbacks. Do you want us to do that, Owen? Do we go over the top 20?
Sure. Number 1 was Aaron Rodgers. 2, Cam Newton. 3, Russell Wilson. 4, Carson Palmer. 5, Tom Brady. 6, Andrew Luck. 7, Ben Roethlisberger. 8, Eli Manning. 9, Drew Brees. 10, Tony Romo. 11, Phillip Rivers. 12, Kirk Cousins. 13, Matthew Stafford. 14, Andy Dalton. 15, Blake Bortles. 16, Tyrod Taylor. 17, Derek Carr. 18, Jameis Winston. 19, Ryan Tannehill. And 20 is Joe Flacco.
Okay, so now we're going to talk about, there's some quarterbacks that are left here. And, I'm just going to go down the line of some of the quarterbacks that are still on the list, which is from Marcus Mariota to Brock Osweiler, Matt Ryan, Robert Griffin III, Sam Bradford, Blaine Gabbert, Colin Kaepernick, Jay Cutler, Alex Smith, Mark Sanchez to, Jared Goff and Geno Smith and Teddy Bridgewater. Now, what we're going to do is I'm going to have Owen, of this list, I want you to pick 3 guys that you think from this list you may be able to pick up off the waiver wire, which could actually maybe save someone's fantasy football year.
Couple things. I think, depending on how the off-season workouts go and when this go into the season, I think Kaepernick could be a sleeper pick. And I only say that because of Chip Kelly and the offense that he runs. I mean, Kaepernick of all quarterbacks is right up his alley. It's right up like he ran with Mariota in Oregon, and I just think if he can get on the same page and follow Kelly's or buy into Kelly's system, he could be that could be a great matchup.
I agree with you. I mean, my question to you is this. Will he even get a chance?
Well, I think Kelly would be silly not to. I mean, when he was in Philadelphia, I never understood why he picked up when he got rid of Foley and it was Foley.
Foles.
Excuse me, Foles. It
was a folly getting Foles.
Yeah, and then picking up Sam Bradford. Bradford is probably one of the most immobile quarterbacks there are, and he's the most brittle quarterback. I didn't get that. But a guy like Kaepernick is right up Chip Kelly's alley. It's right up his system. So
I agree with you.
I would be surprised if Gabbert stays on the field. That'd just be me. That'd be my.
Your take, Gabbert. I was when they benched Gabbert. When they benched Kaepernick and they started Gabbert, I was like, what the heck are they doing? But Gabbert didn't have a bad season. He didn't have a great season or anything, but he didn't have a bad season.
But I think
agree.
That's
I think
coaching.
I think Kaepernick's a much better quarterback.
But I just have to. I got to believe that goes back to coaching. I mean, when you had.
Tom Sula?
Yeah, well, Thompson. I was thinking of Harbaugh. Mm-hmm. Now Thompson and Harbaugh are just night and day. Harbaugh is a quarterback coach, and he had Kaepernick hitting on all cylinders up until maybe the his third year, and he kind of fell off a little bit. But I think as I'm saying, if Kaepernick will buy into Kelly's system and run it efficiently, I think that's good for both of them.
I agree with you. I think if Kelly's going to be successful in San Francisco, Kaepernick has to be the guy.
There's a couple of people on this list that I would not pick up. And I hate to do this because I'm a USC guy, but Sanchez is not the franchise. I mean, that is he's not the franchise. I would not go with Mark Sanchez, and the other one I wouldn't go with is Smith. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Joe Flacco in that he's kind of a game manager, good, decent quarterback, doesn't make mistakes. He's a heady guy, but he's just since the very beginning he has never impressed me as being a just a top-tier quarterback.
Now, here's something. Let's touch on Geno Smith for a second here. Geno Smith, I hope that they get this whole quarterback situation and bring Fitzpatrick back. But with that being said, every once in a while, Geno Smith has been able to put together some really huge games and some disastrous games. Disastrous games. If you're looking for, let's say you're on a bye week or your quarterback goes down, and it's one game that you have to go with Geno Smith, and it's a good matchup, would you take him? Would you try him?
No.
I would. I would still, depending on the matchup. If it's, depending on who they're matching up, I wouldn't completely rule him out, but he's not someone I would remotely want to depend on whatsoever. Now, on this list, I'll tell you a guy that I really like, and that's Matt Ryan. Matt Ryan is a guy he's been a pretty good quarterback. He's a pretty sharp quarterback, but anyone who has Julio Jones to throw to is going to get you some numbers.
Ryan's a solid pick. He would definitely. I would look at him before any of these other guys, and for a bye week. But how about here's one for you. How about Jimmy Garoppolo?
Okay, Garoppolo. Okay,
Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo. How about Jimmy Garoppolo?
I paused for a second. I'm like, okay.
Well,
I'm like, divided by two, carry to one. Who are we talking about?
Too many vowels. I bought too many vowels there. But hey, he's going to be in he might be in a starter for 4 games.
Yeah.
And Belichick's system, you just plug him in.
Is it crazy to say that?
Yes.
It is crazy, but I'm just saying, let's say you do draft Brady, do you pull that trigger?
No.
Okay, I'm just checking. I'm not pulling that trigger.
No, you don't do that.
Well, everyone says he's a pretty good quarterback, but I don't think I'm not that brave.
Yeah, that's no.
Speaking of brave, let's get down to brass tacks here. Are you brave enough to start Robert Griffin III?
No.
Elaborate.
It's a shame. It's a shame what happened to him in Washington, because I just think they ruined him. He played hurt, actually injured, not hurt, and I just think they just ruined him. He's gun shy. He's not he's just not the quarterback he was in his rookie year, 3 quarters into his rookie year. It's just too bad.
Okay, here's my statement, and this is where I may have to protect myself because Owen may just choke me out over here. As far as fantasy goes, we're not talking NFL, we're talking fantasy. As far as fantasy goes, I look at Robert Griffin III as a possible comeback player of the year, and that sounds crazy, right?
Yeah.
And let me tell you why. He's humbled. He's hungry. He's on the Browns, who's going to be in a situation every single week where they have to play and shoot out games every single week. And the Browns, who have been making horrible after horrible decisions every year, I thought they made a really smart decision this year in the draft. They went after wide receivers, and they kept going after wide receivers, one after the next one after the next one. And you know what? If you're going to go in and you're going to say we're all in on Robert Griffin III, you better get him some weapons, and that's what they did. And then, and if you can stop a certain quarterback from smoking his career away, you could have a situation where you have some pretty good wide receivers and some good weapons, where you have a quarterback doing decent. Browns aren't going to do anything, but a guy that could actually rack up a lot of yards and get some points and actually be a serviceable fantasy quarterback. Or do you think I'm crazy?
No, you're not crazy, but it's a little bit of a stretch. I just don't think he's. I just think he's a shell of himself. I mean, he just has got just beat up so much over the last few years. And, the Browns are not their line is not exactly
worst line in NFL.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's going to be scared of coming at those guys. So I think he'll be spending a lot of time running.
Oh, he's going to be running for his life this year.
Right, exactly. So I don't know. I don't see that. I mean, I wish him well. I hope he comes back. That'd be great. But I don't see it.
Okay, now let's touch a little bit on a couple, just not on all of them, but a couple of the rookies and what you think as how those things are going to go. Like Jared Goff, for instance.
I didn't get a chance to see him play, even though he plays up here in Northern California, but from Cal. But all this. I mean, I saw him on TV, but not live. Good quarterback, strong quarterback. I don't know how much he'll play this year. I don't know that they're going to keep put him out right away.
I don't really see him doing. I don't see any of these quarterbacks doing anything this year. I could see maybe Goff getting in maybe week 8, late in the season. If you're in let's say you're in a dynasty league and you're able to keep Goff, would you take him and keep him for future picks, or is he someone that you would look at as my future quarterback?
I'd have to wait and see. I don't see him. I'd have to see how he does. It's way too early. I mean, he's not going to even get on the field for a while. So, and there, the thing is, there is a huge leap from college quarterback to NFL quarterback.
Agree with you 1,000%.
It's not like you're going from a system at Cal that you could go right into in the pros and then pick it up. It's so much different than what they teach in college. And in college is more of a spread, no huddle. All that stuff. In the pros, it's more, there are more systems. They're more, read the defense, check downs, all this stuff. A lot more goes into it. You have to be a heady person. You have to be really cerebral, and it just takes time to learn all that stuff. You just cannot go from the college level to the pros.
Here's my take. My question was, if you're in a dynasty league, would you take him and hold him long term? And my answer is no. No, I wouldn't. There's too many other quarterbacks out there. I'm still not convinced he's a quarterback he's your quarterback of the future. I'm just not sold on him yet.
And that's the same. I would say the same thing with Carson Wentz.
Yes, no, I agree with
Philadelphia.
Actually, I like Carson Wentz better than Goff as far as long-term project goes.
Yeah, and I think Wentz is going to get on the field quicker, in my opinion, because Bradford's too brittle.
I hope not.
Yeah, I mean, I hope not too. I don't want to see anybody get hurt, but
I'm just saying he's a guy that if you let him sit the bench a couple of years, you could have something there in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
But if they force him out there too early, I think you can mess a quarterback up.
Don't disagree with that.
All right, so we're gonna wrap things up as far as quarterbacks go. We're gonna go back down the line of our top 20 quarterbacks, which is Aaron Rodgers, Cam Newton, Russell Wilson, Carson Palmer, Tom Brady, Andrew Luck, Ben Roethlisberger, Eli Manning, Drew Brees, and Tony Romo. And O-Dog, you want to take the last?
Yeah, from 11 on is Phillip Rivers, Kirk Cousins, Matthew Stafford, Andy Dalton, Blake Bortles, Tyrod Taylor, number 17, and Derek Carr, Jameis Winston, Ryan Tannehill, and Joe Flacco.
Yes. Now, that concludes all of our top 20 quarterbacks, and we got a few extra bonus ones in there. Before we go, I wanted to touch on a very sad thing that happened this weekend. We lost the legend, the greatest of all time, Muhammad Ali. I know this is a fantasy football show, but certain people transcend all shows, and he was kind of an idol to my dad, and he was an idol to me. And our hearts and thoughts go out to his family. Do you have anything on this one?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up. I forget how old I was when he knocked Liston out. It was 1964, and I was probably 12. My dad used to watch Friday night fights all the time, and obviously the heavyweights weren't always in there, but he was such a different dynamic person. He was he came out, he was loudmouthed and bragged, but then he backed it up. And, he was just an iconic figure. Some of the greatest fights were with him involved. And it really made – boxing was always a big sport, but in those 60s and 70s when he fought, it was a monster sport. And, like the Thrill in Manila, the one in Zaire, those fights were just amazing things. And I think he was just such a iconic figure. It's just a tragedy that he developed Parkinson's at such a young age, and then just deteriorated.
Yeah.
R.I.P.
The last thing I'll say is, a lot of times when you think about Muhammad Ali, you think about him as a boxer, but he's that one guy that he was a sports athlete, but he was even bigger outside the ring. He was a larger than life guy outside the ring. He was a larger than life guy inside the ring. It was very sad to see, the latter part of his life, how Parkinson had gotten the best of him. But he will always be the greatest in my eyes. And so, like Owen said, rest in peace, and all our thoughts go out to his family. With that, we wrap things up. Thank you for tuning in to the Fantasy Football Podcast. You can always visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and you can download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play. With that, I thank my partner Owen over here.
You're welcome, and it's been a pleasure.
All right, and good night.